Reverend Lynn Unger was for many years the religious education director of the Church of the Larger Fellowship. CLF, Church of the Larger Fellowship, is the largest congregation in the UUA. It is meeting virtually and composing weekly online worship for those who otherwise would have no access to a congregation. This includes Unitarian Universalist ministers who have no congregation to worship in without CLF, and so many of them are members of that. It includes prison inmates, and it includes dwellers in remote locations that are not close to one of our only 1,000 or so congregations in the country. In June of 2017, Lynn composed her monthly article for Quest, the CLF publication. She served as the religious education director for that for many, many, many years. Growing a soul. I like that. I like that image. Reverend Unger said, whatever happens at church, preaching or teaching or singing or marching or praying or meeting or chatting together over coffee, the point of it is that we grow our souls. Church does, she said, or at least what church should do, is to help us expand that part of us that cares and wonders and creates and connects. But what is it? What is soul? Thomas More wrote, "It is impossible to define precisely what the soul is. Definition is an intellectual enterprise anyway. The soul prefers to imagine. We know intuitively that soul has to do with with genuineness and depth. So music has soul. Or a remarkable person is soulful. It's tied to life in all its particulars. Good food, satisfying conversation, genuine friends and experiences that stay in the memory and touch the heart." Soul doesn't have to be defined as some individual entity, at least not for me. I have a soul, you have a soul, everybody gets a soul. Like an ethereal entity or something, a passport to heaven. That's the way we've traditionally been taught in church. In fact, to me, individualizing the term diminishes its meaning. Einstein's mathematical genius gave him a mystical understanding of the interconnectedness of all of life. It's reported that he was asked one time if he was afraid of death. He replied, "I feel such a solidarity with all living things that it does not matter to me where the individual begins and ends." And Carl Jung famously talked about our collective unconscious. Thomas More lived 12 years as a Catholic monk and has degrees in theology, musicology, and philosophy. In his book, Care of the Soul, he said the great malady of the 20th century, and I think we can roll that right on over to the 21st, is loss of soul. When soul is neglected, he said, it doesn't just go away. It appears symptomatically in obsessions, addictions, violence, and loss of meaning. Ph.D. Joan Borysenko wrote a book called Fire in the Soul. She describes it as a new psychology of spiritual optimism. She said, both in my practice as a medical psychologist and in my personal life, my soul has burned with the question, why? Why do human beings suffer? Are we tainted by original sin? Are we living out our karma? Is there a personal God who punishes us? Or do our very wounds contain the seed of something else? An awakening to a state of greater wisdom, compassion, creativity, and love. Borisenko said when she was 15 years old, she came home with some information on the Unitarian Church. Her Jewish mother threw it in the trash and said, "I forbid you to read about other religions or to study psychology. I say this for your own good." Joan, of course, grew up to be a psychologist with a major interest in religion and philosophy. "I owe my mother all that I am," she said. And so her psychology of spiritual optimism, she defines as the point of view that every difficult experience provides an opportunity for soul growth and spiritual homecoming. When our souls are on fire, she wrote, old beliefs and opinions can be consumed, bringing us closer to our essential nature and to the heart of healing. The Spanish mystic St. John of the Cross called this inner burning the dark night of the soul. That part of the spiritual journey when we lose our way and confront our deepest fears and pains. Now, talking about soul in a Unitarian Universalist congregation can be maybe a little questionable. And so I'm going to ask the question, where are you in the discussion? Does that word have any meaning for you? What would you say about soul? So, open floor. Surprise. Yes, Linda.
I've always thought of it being an individual thing. I never thought of it as a collective concept.
Okay.
Well, I believe in reincarnation, and I believe that your soul goes with you every time you come back on this planet, and that you develop and grow. And at some point after many reincarnations, you come back and no longer your soul rises.
Okay. Yes.
I know two people in my life in different situations that were present at a death of a loved one, and the two people, this wasn't people who were present, but these two people actually saw the soul.
Mm.
They claim to have seen it. Yeah. The other people don't even know each other.
Oh, wow.
I've seen that with hospice work.
Wow.
People pass.
This.
I'd like to suppose that individual and collective things are feeling we have our own aspirations and our own things that feed our souls, but we're also a beautiful, filled depiction of every single person that comes into our lives and helps feed our souls. So it is very much individual and collective.
In fact, as I was hearing people talk, this image came to my mind of the mitochondria and the trees and the relationship. You have the individual trees, but they're not individual at all. They're all connected and intertwined. Yes. Others? Anybody else? Thank you so much. I put the notion of soul in the spiritual column, not in the religious column. Psychotherapist Rachel Naomi Raymond explains the difference. A religion is a dogma, a set of beliefs about the spiritual, and a set of practices which rise up out of these beliefs. There are many religions, and they tend to be mutually exclusive. And by that, every religion tends to think it has the dibs on the spiritual. that our religion is the way. But the spiritual is inclusive. It is the deepest sense of belonging and participation. Religion is a bridge to the spiritual, but the spiritual lies beyond religion. Dr. Borisenko, who was at least familiar with Unitarianism, she told us, seems to be giving us a nod as she says, religions that lead us to experiences of interconnectedness and deep participation with one another and connections with the divine are bridges to the spiritual. They direct us to that indwelling center, the capital S self, in which communion, awe, gratitude, compassion, joy, and wisdom are matters of experience rather than dogma. Isn't that our UU theology? Of all the spiritual sources from which we draw, first and most important on the list for me was always direct experience of that transcending mystery and wonder, which moves us to a renewal of the spirit and an openness to the forces that create and uphold life. The words taken right out of the bylaws. Literally, sadly, they took them out. It is not the worship of that wonderful mystery. It's not the definition or the explanation of that mystery or the belief in that mystery. It's the experience in our hearts and in our souls. So, Reverend Unger asks, how does one go about growing a soul? Plants need earth and air and water and sunlight. What do souls need? Souls, it seems, are complicated and contradictory, she says. I have watched them grow through times of deep sorrow, but I've also seen them expand through experiences of joy. She said a friend of mine talked about how the death of her father led to her feeling connected with others who had experienced such grief. And the recognition that with each and every person she talked to had their own experience of grief. So there's the connectedness. But with this very same friend, she said, I have also experienced my soul expanding in the joy of together singing and dancing. Joy and sorrow, food for the soul. Time alone in meditation or reflection or study or prayer can grow a soul. But so can times of intense connection with other people. There's that individual and collective. We might feel our soul expand as we sit alone under a tree, but we are just as likely to experience that sensation of the soul stretching in deeply honest conversation or in marching together with thousands of other people in pursuit of justice. The soul grows when we stay true to our own unique selves, said Unger, refusing to go along with the crowd. But the soul also grows when we experience ways in which we are inseparable from other people and from all the beings on this planet. There is no great art without personal freedom of expression, but it is also true that art is only great when it connects us to something larger than our own small selves. I'm not sure there's a simple, straightforward answer to what grows a soul, any more than there is a simple answer to what exactly a soul is. But maybe soul is the part of us that experiences that yearning for something more. And the way to grow it is to follow whatever that yearning might be. In the anonymous 14th century book, The Cloud of Unknowing, which is a primer for young monks, it says, God regards with merciful eyes not what you are, not what you have been, but what you wish to be. Amen.